Hello, everybody. It is John Pollock and Wai Ting. Welcome to Rewind to Raw live here at youtube.com/postwrestling. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and then you are truly a member of the Post community. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. We have lots to discuss tonight. Obviously a down note that we will be starting off with. But before we get to that, how was your birthday?
It was pretty low key, honestly. Tonight's more of a work night. But I mean, I had a great day either way. I mean, I think my real celebration is tomorrow night when I'm gonna sit down and watch the Bachelor finale.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Miz TV, a special NXT edition of Miz TV.
That might be a Wednesday.
Could be. Well, okay. What's going on The Bachelor? Are we down to any significance?
I don't want any spoilers, John. I'm even afraid of mentioning because I know somebody's gonna spoil it for me. It's a 2-night finale, John.
It was tonight.
It's tonight and tomorrow. The ratings are gonna definitely reflect it tomorrow, I'm sure.
Okay.
But it's a 2-parter, and it's said to be the craziest Bachelor finale ever.
1 hour each night.
2 hours each night.
4 hours of Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Okay. Well, I will say no more because I clearly had it on picture-in-picture the whole night and was following.
No, it's not you. It's like whatever. I
understand.
It's that important to me, John. Like it's like I have my whole evening planned.
All right. Well, all the best to you with that. You know what I'm watching right now is that new show Winning Time on HBO. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not at all. What is that about?
This is based off of it was adapted from Jeff Pearlman's book Showtime that he put out many years ago on the LA Lakers of the pretty much of the 80s. So they have this is what you're familiar obviously with Adam McKay. He is the superstar of scripted television at the moment. So his partner was Will Ferrell, and Will Ferrell wanted to play the role of Jerry Buss on the show, and it ended up where Adam McKay cast John C. Reilly in the role, and somehow the communication was not very clear about all of this, that he bypassed his partner to cast John C. Reilly, which I think was the better casting choice, to be perfectly honest. But it has just been an irreparable rift now between the two. It's like this major Hollywood breakup of like these, two huge figures, and it was over this casting. But I caught up on it over the weekend. I watched the season premiere, which was last weekend, and then the new one on Sunday night. It's a pretty great series.
And it's about the Lakers of what era?
Like we're into the late 70s into the 80s. It's right when Magic Johnson gets drafted.
Okay, interesting.
So
okay.
it's like they're taking some creative license, obviously, but it's not a documentary. It's a scripted series.
Okay, I will add that to the list.
You don't have to watch it. I mean,
no, I will. It sounds actually really interesting, and I now that you mentioned it, I have heard people talk about it. So
because Jeff Pearlman wrote another book about like the Lakers of the 90s, like the Shaq Kobe years, and that I have read, but I did not read this book. So this one I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to watch the series first and then read the book. Okay,
cool. Well, you could spoil that one away. I don't have such a vested interest in that.
The Lakers did well. All right, let's get into wrestling news. Obviously, the major headline tonight. Sadly, this was what I think everyone was realizing would be the conclusion here, and that was the passing of Scott Hall earlier today at the age of 63. When we last spoke to you earlier today during the Post Daily News show, he was being taken off of life support apparently right around noon Eastern time, and as of the afternoon, his heart was still beating. And it was at the start of Raw that the confirmation was passed along. They put up the graphic right at 8 p.m. I don't know when WWE was made aware of it, but you had Sean Waltman just moments after that confirmed that he had died. And sadly, Wade, like we knew where this was going. It's tragic regardless. And for those just catching up on the circumstances, he had hip surgery last week, and then a blood clot got loose, and over the weekend had 3 heart attacks, which put him on life support, and then hearing the news through Kevin Nash that they were taking him off of life support. So 63 years of age. And what did you think just about, they probably had that video package put together today. I would assume they reserved that for the third hour. And really, in terms of like, if you were watching for it, like certainly Kevin Owens had a pair of lines on the show. He started it off with a "Hey yo," and then later in the back about semi-altering the tough guys line that he used there. And then we saw Damian Priest also. He's been using the Razor's Edge, but using that and then noting that online afterwards. So a few tributes from guys along with the video in the third hour.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Graves introducing the video in particular, I mean,
Very
clearly
emotional.
got very emotional, was very choked up, as I'm sure many people in the back were. You know, he is somebody who I think is very much tied to the fabric of this company and the fabric of modern professional wrestling.
And was very much involved, you know, at different points, like coming in as a guest coach to the Performance Center. So very much with like, you know, this current crop of talent, like Omos and others that got to work with him even in a limited basis.
And beyond that, I mean, you know, many of the people of that era grew up watching Scott Hall.
Tons.
People that are similar age to you or I, you know, who were maybe not necessarily like who would have been fans maybe during the Hogan era, but for me, like, you know, really kind of coming of age and becoming a wrestling fan during the New Generation era, and of course, you know, throughout the NWO era and just into the Monday Night Wars era, of which he was such a integral character to all of it. I mean, for me, like, I remember being 8 years old and having, you know, my friends say, if something happened to this gold, something gonna happen to you. You know, like that character to me was so incredibly iconic that even at that age, like he became a favorite, and I believe he was still a heel at the time. So I mean, they did, you know, consistently mention throughout the video that he was like, he made, like, it was the line that they seemed to have was for whatever video package that they were using, probably for the Hall of Fame. It was something to the effect of like, you know, he made it cool to be a bad guy, and I mean, it's very true. Like, I think he is an early example of a pro wrestling anti-hero who I think became so popular as a villain that, I mean, it was very easy to turn him into a baby face without changing too much of his personality.
I think so. And I think some of that would extend to Scott Hall. Like, this is someone, I think it's always tricky when someone passes away and there's the desire to, of course, look at all of the positive influence, and you're viewing it through the prism of, for many people, fans that watched him as a child growing up and saw all that he went through. Like, there are plenty of bad stories involving Scott Hall and other wrestlers that, I mean, he was a real difficult person to work with. But when you look at that, like, here is someone that I think for all of it, you look at somebody that you hope that they were able to grow, you try to understand, like, what is the foundation that led to this. And I think that documentary, that E60 piece, helped give that foundation. And I think, like, that's always something important to look at, you know, why are these set of circumstances the way they are for some people. And it's not sometimes just chasing a high. Sometimes it's trying to get away from something on top of it. And this is not to, you know, just to overlook lots of stuff. Like, you can look at good and the bad. That is what comes with any kind of personality, and kind of, you know, this idea of good guy, bad guy. That's it's often very, very simplistic. But I think it's someone that you can see a lot of stories emerging today of just things he did in private that were just to help people out, that a camera was not on and a spotlight was not on him. And you're naturally going to gravitate more towards those kinds of stories that you want to remember someone for, and realize, like, life is a struggle. And this is a guy that had an enormous one from a very young age right until the end.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, a man who seemed to live a far from perfect life, but, you know, what does the closing chapter look like? And I think by all accounts, you know, he the last few years of his life, he seemed to live, you know, very, in a very, I think, noble and way, completely honest about his faults, you know, and at least, you know, in terms of his sobriety, he seemed to overcome a lot of those obstacles.
Yeah, I think that another theme that really comes out is just, and it was summarized well by Kevin Nash in that video package tonight, is that you can't teach someone how to be cool, and Scott Hall was cool. And I think that really resonated with fans, whether it was, for most, it's, maybe you saw him, sparingly as the Diamond Stud in WCW or some of his pre-WWF work. But for a lot, I would imagine the entry point was the Razor Ramon character. And then taking and building upon that as simply Scott Hall in WCW, where he reached even greater heights. This was just a very cool character at a time when professional wrestling itself was exceptionally cool.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, universally loved, I don't think it matters what age. As I mentioned, we were 8 years old on the playground, and he was among our favorites, if not our very favorite. And it became a fan favorite almost right away. What is it? Nash, what was it? Triple H, it was in the video package, said how it was that character that, was the dynamite that unlocked all that was within him. And I've seen a little bit of the Diamond Stud work. I've certainly seen his verse on the Wrestle Rock Rumble, and it's a far cry from, I think, the coolness of what he would end up finding with Razor Ramon.
Maybe you can't teach cool, but you can grow into it. That is certainly true. But I mean, just a lot of little things that he was able to incorporate, whether it was just like the surfer walk or the toothpick, or just picking up on little elements of like all those little things that just became these trademarks of him and identifying stuff. Like he seemed to have like a good grasp on what was cool to the audience as well, even if he was kind of getting away from that demographic age-wise to try. Like Benno posted it today, and he really summarized it right. Like, show me a cooler entrance than this, with like Scott Hall's Fuji's entrance at one of the ECW appearances he came out to. I mean, he was that guy that just, when you talk about a guy that had a star presence, that was really his calling card. Like, was he the greatest wrestler in the world? No, he had some notable matches, but this guy was a personality first and foremost that had a strong star presence, and that takes you very far in this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion today, of course, about how he might be among, the people with the most impact in our industry who has never won a world championship. And I think that really says a whole lot. The fact that a guy like him became a bigger star than many, many, many wrestlers who did win championships, I think kind of tells you all there is to know about how big of a personality he was. How bold of a performer he was, maybe behind the scenes, and how effective he was ultimately at creating a big star among himself and stars among others too. I mean, to me, one of the big moments of his career is losing to the 1-2-3 Kid on that edition of Monday Night Raw. That, I mean, to me was really the first significant moment of Monday Night Raw, and of course, made Sean Waltman's career.
I think that I kind of wrote about that today. Like, that to me really did put a big exclamation mark on Monday Night Raw, that here's a show where big things happen. That was like right before they did the Michaels Jannetty title change. But to me, it was like that win, like, it propelled Sean Waltman. It was a significant happening for Raw, and it really did usher in the slow transition from Scott Hall into a babyface. Like, he still went into the King of the Ring that year with Brett as a heel, but then by the fall, he's Intercontinental Champion. It sets up the match with Shawn Michaels, and you had like a really solid babyface star in Scott Hall that he ran with up until leaving the company in '96. And I mean, to me, it's going to be like that WCW period from 96 to 2000 that is going to be really the apex of what people are going to look at when him and Nash were instrumental in coming in. It was that first 2-hour Nitro that he showed up on Memorial Day, and an integral part to the NWO when it was at its strongest, and somebody that honestly you're coupling all that while he's having all of these problems and having all of these issues outside of the ring. And a big star like that, you're gonna get leeway for that, and he did. They had that awful decision to incorporate that into that feud with Kevin Nash, which was just it was terrible. But when you go back, like, here by '99, the guy is he's 40 years old when 1999 begins. Like he should have had huge years going into his 40s, and it was just marred by so many problems. From WCW, he was gone by early 2000, and then he has the New Japan stint, and then back to WWE in 2002, and they were just all marred by problems outside of the ring that his career could have been that much more, but that is the complicated nature of a Scott Hall. And I think that you're right. He got to a point where I think people got to see, especially if you ever saw, like, whether it be the E60 documentary or just the footage at the time that emerged of that independent show in Massachusetts, where it's one of the most frightening things I have seen, where it's just, he is there in body only. Like, there is no life in this person as he is being trotted out. It was one of the most just deplorable things that this was a guy that was just, you can't even describe it. To see that low, and that several years later he's coherent and he is speaking on a stage like at the Hall of Fame. I remember us being at Wall-E Mania one year, just being in the back, and he's just calm, holding conversations with people, and just from not knowing the guy, seemed to be in a significantly better place at that point. And people at least got to see that and see him on some of these WWE specials and the cameos, where he just seemed to be in a lot better state than where he had descended to.
Yeah, and of course, much of that being credited to the work of Diamond Dallas Page, and Jake Roberts, being such positive influences in his life towards the end. And at least, as a fan, I'm really glad to see I'm really glad we got to see that final chapter of his life, and how he, seemed to just only have positive, stories coming out of him. Between that and the Hall of Fame induction and just any sort of appearance he would have, it just seemed like he was in great spirits and very much alive and very conscious and very aware of his mistakes. And I think, for the longest time, his life, and I think it will continue to be, it'll serve as a cautionary tale for any new wrestler entering into the business, any new wrestler that's currently in the business, of how not to handle the early part of it. And for those of you, for people who might unfortunately find themselves under a similar path, I mean, I think shows that even if you're somebody who was as broken down as Scott Hall, there is a path to redemption.
I think so. Like, that's a really significant lesson that you should take, and that's not to say like there are some infractions people cannot come back from, but the idea that someone is irredeemable, like that can be very daunting to look at, just as a society, that someone cannot rehabilitate themselves and be welcomed back and be treated as someone that can come back from a lot of lows, with which this man experienced, and kept a lot of it inside, out of his like inner circle, in relation to just the trauma that he experienced at a young age as well. So there's probably a lot more to speak about with Scott Hall. I imagine there's going to be many stories in the days to come from those that were around him. I'm really curious to hear, like, if those closest to him are going to speak at any length, whether it be a Kevin Nash or a Paul Levesque or a Shawn Michaels, beyond just the brief comments that we have seen emerging. But it's just any kind of presence among, like, I look at WrestleMania weekend, and especially like that Sean Waltman Joey Janela match. Like I can certainly see that being kind of at least some kind of tribute to Scott Hall, if not other mentions throughout the weekend.
Certainly. Yep. I mean, all members of the clique are still in some way, active or semi-active in the business. Of course, Triple H is currently out, but Sean is still very much attached to NXT. And again, he's a name that is very much tied to the WWE. So I imagine the tributes in ring or out of the ring will continue to pour in.
All right. We're going to move on to Raw shortly, but I failed to mention this on Monday, but we're going to be trying out a new format for Ask Away on Tuesday. So we're going to be doing the post-daily news show at our usual time of 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to wrap up that show, And then we're going to come back at 2 p.m. Eastern time for our double ice cap and espresso members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. So Wai and I are going to be recording our usual Ask Away mailbag show where we take your questions from the Post Wrestling Forum. And if you are a double ice cap or espresso member, you'll have the Zoom link to log in and you can listen and watch the show live as we record it. If not, it'll be up and available in podcast form for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. But it's a perk that we're throwing out there for our double ice cap and espresso tiers.
And we'll take live questions as well.
That is right. So we'll be doing that at 2 p.m. Eastern time after the Post Daily News Show. So trying that out. And the whole schedule is up at postwrestling.com. We have Ask Away on Tuesday as well. Up next, we'll be live at 10:15 Eastern on Tuesday night, which is 3:15 a.m. Davey Portman time. And they'll be reviewing Miz TV. Who would have thought a year ago that NXT would be built around a Miz TV segment with Dolph Ziggler?
I certainly did not, but it's a different NXT right now. But yeah, of course, over the past weekend, we released an edition of WrestleNomics with Brandon Thurston and Chris Gullo talking about the release of WWE 2K22 and also the latest edition of The Long and Winding Royal Road. And this will be a great time to remind people or to tell people, for those of you who are not yet aware, that we have a new shirt up at store.postwrestling.com. It is a redesign of the Long and Winding Royal Road t-shirt. And for this month until March 31st, 30% of the profits from the sale of this particular t-shirt will be sent to the Japanese Red Cross Society in honor of the 11-year anniversary of the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. And also, Post Wrestling will match the donation, whatever that shirt makes. We will match the donation to be sent to Doctors Without Borders in support of their ongoing efforts during the Ukraine humanitarian crisis. So it's a great shirt. Store.postwrestling.com to help some great causes.
All right, and let's get into Raw. Monday night from Jacksonville, Florida, and all eyes were on Cody Rhodes. Would he show up at Raw? Spoiler, he didn't.
Nope. You can turn the podcast off now, everybody. He did not show up.
Damn it. I thought for sure they would do it. So Dave Meltzer reported earlier today on his site that that Cody was still listed for WrestleMania as of Friday. So that is what he had reported. From my understanding, from what I had heard over the weekend and today, that sounds like that is the plan with Cody Rhodes for WrestleMania. Coming out of tonight, obviously, Seth Rollins is without an opponent. That is the person that makes the only sense, I would say, for Cody Rhodes if he's going to be at WrestleMania. Could you see any other viable scenario way?
They could have Omos, they could have anybody, but I think Rollins seems to be primed for some sort of significant role at WrestleMania, and this would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
So if that is your direction, and we're under the impression it is, would there be how would you want to promote it? Would you announce it in advance? Would you do this story with Rollins going right up to the show that he is not booked at WrestleMania? What is the optimal way if you are getting to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania? Is that something that is big enough that you should be promoting it in advance?
Oh, man. Well, we've seen with CM Punk, the evidence that you don't necessarily have to explicitly say.
There's a way to do it without announcing him. But ultimately for me, it would be you want to capitalize on this. So I think you would want it to be done in such a way that there's been no, if you're listening closely, there's the odd allusion to Cody in some of the language, but it's hardly been thrown out there if you're just your WWE consumer that they are not leading you in that direction, I would say, from watching the TV.
No, in fact, I think they were leading at least me to think that he would make an appearance by the end of the show. And when the show went off air and he did not, I think what you're ultimately left with is, a lot of people in the audience feeling disappointed, at least. But hey, WrestleMania is not for a couple weeks. And in that time, as long as they manage to, build that expectation strong enough for that first night of WrestleMania or the second night of WrestleMania, I think it'll still be successful. But of course, if you have the guy, and if you know he's coming, to use it to peak your ratings would make the most sense, would it not? To continue to, dominate the conversation in the weeks leading up to it. That would make the most sense, wouldn't it?
I think so. Like, I think like it's kind of like we'll see, like the proof will be in the pudding of, at the same time, like, do they look at Cody Rhodes as someone that's enough of a mover that, we should not just be leaving this as a surprise. This is someone that could move some tickets for us, that is worth announcing in advance if we have him. And that's another big if. Like, has pen been put to paper? That I cannot say 100%. And you're not going to tease something that you don't have completely locked in. And as we have seen with other programs, like what might be the plan today could very well change tomorrow. So the fact is, though, they're not setting up Rollins in another direction. It's not like they shot an angle tonight to go a different direction. So I think that is going to only enhance speculation that all roads will lead to Cody.
Yeah, we shall see, dude. I mean, do you think next week? What do you think happens next week?
I think they're going to continue this with Rollins, that he is shut out of WrestleMania. Because I think if you were going to announce the match, tonight was the night to shoot that angle.
Okay. Well, again, we'll see.
Again, things could, like, even if that's the idea, though, it's like they're looking at how many tickets still need to be sold. And they may look at it, hey, we've announced Austin, we've announced this and that. We need something else as a big shot. Let's go out and we'll shoot this big angle with Cody. Like, they could very well just come up with that idea at the same time. It's like, how important is it to move these remaining tickets and create the most amount of buzz for the show? Like, that's what they're trying to peak for in 3 weeks.
Realistically, how much do you think Cody means to a live audience?
I think if you, it's hard to say. I think he would mean something, but I think you would have to go all in and really make this almost like a guy coming in as like your outsider invading, to borrow from a Scott Hall theme. And I don't sense like that is the direction that they would be going, because it's just so counter to how they have done this kind of thing in the past. But I think that would be the most effective use of a Cody, rather than him just coming in and he's another guy instantly. But to answer your question, I think he could mean something. I don't think he's moving 15,000 tickets, but to mean something with a spark for WrestleMania. Like, I'm watching tonight's show, and like, there's no Austin on this show. The main program, the main stars for WrestleMania are on SmackDown at the moment. Like, this is a show that we're literally having two guys all show fight around who's going to host a talk show.
Pretty much, yeah, at this point. I can only speculate that maybe they didn't push it as hard. I mean, because they don't have pen to paper yet. And
that's a possibility. That's totally a possibility. And I would not fault them then. Like, if you do not have pen to paper, you cannot tease something that's that has not, at least that you can guarantee at the moment. So we still have question marks, but let's get into the show. It started off with the Scott Hall graphic at the beginning, and this was probably, the breaking news to most people of his passing. And Kevin Owens then came out to start the show with a "Hey Yo," and then got into his promo that he is the happiest Canadian in the world. Is he happier than you today?
He's got to be pretty happy to be happier than me today. Yeah.
Well, he's going to WrestleMania and calls it the main event. The KO show, the main event of WrestleMania. And he used his superior Canadian intellect to issue a challenge, knowing that Steve Austin couldn't turn it down. The crowd starts chanting USA, and the only can that will be opened is a nice can of Canadian beer. And I don't even like beer, but I'm going to make an exception that night to celebrate after I beat the hell out of Austin, and that's the bottom line, because KO said so before stunning the cameraman inside the ring.
That cameraman took quite the stunner bump. He did the whole flip and everything. It was quite impressive, whoever that cameraman was.
So I had someone message me who said the cameraman looked like Bruce Pritchard's son, who was used in that Money in the Bank when they were fighting in the towers, but I couldn't get a good enough look at him to.
I have no idea what Bruce Pritchard's son looks like.
I don't either. Even though I did, he did have a cameo in that headquarters Money in the Bank that pandemic year. But anyway,
Okay.
that's
Well,
I
this
saw
was
one.
a great little audition for the guy.
This was probably a fill-in camera operator. I don't know if they used a legit camera guy for this.
I don't know if the crossover between people who can work a camera up close and also sell a stunner like that is very high. So that's a good bet. Owens is really playing this one like a very cartoonish heel. It's like it's a very kind of one note type of I hate Texas. I'm from Canada. Canada's great. Can it go Canadian
It's easy
beer?
heat. Everyone hates Canadians that are not in Canada, and especially Texans will. I mean,
Sure. I mean, or just anybody outside of anybody who doesn't like Texas and thinks that wherever they're from is superior. And Owens, of course, does a great job, but I mean, it's certainly not a very complex storyline that they're trying to work here. It's like they're setting up for Owens to get stunned, and maybe a bit more.
what's the old saying? No one ever went broke underestimating the taste of the public.
Is that a saying? Is that an actual saying?
Yeah,
Wow,
that's definitely a saying.
mouthful. But hey, man, come on, there are great beers in Canada. Like people who we're more than Molson Canadian or Labatt Blue. Everybody, we got some great micro breweries around here.
Yeah, I think so. You could explore. So Finn Balor versus Damian Priest. Austin Theory comes out and joined commentary, and Balor attacked with a running drop kick on the floor. This is where Priest hit the razor's edge to Balor on the desk. Chokeslam gets countered into a double stomp, and then Balor does his comeback, sets up for the coup de grace. When Theory gets up to distract, Balor hits an enziguri to Damian Priest, and then goes after Theory with a running drop kick, rolls into the ring, rolls right into the Reckoning, and Damian Priest wins. And then for the double whammy, Theory comes in and lays out Finn Balor with the ATL. I didn't know what was going on here with Austin Theory.
I mean, I'm guessing he just needs a bit of time, Phil. Like, because McAfee's not going to be on Raw. So maybe he's just going to face Balor again.
Maybe Theory could just be on SmackDown for this run-up.
Well, what I thought was like, I mean, I thought him auditioning to do the commentary tonight was like him getting ready to take over that role on SmackDown.
Okay, that would not be good. This guy does not need to be on commentary for more than 3 minutes.
It's true. I thought he could have been a bit more vocal. I know the gimmick is not he's not supposed to be a good commentator, but at least to kind of take the piss a little bit more by being a bit more vocal. I wonder if they'll keep that up a little.
Well, they got to do something with like Pat McAfee and his repercussions from last Friday, which they've not followed up on yet. So yeah, that could be the heel shtick, is that Austin Theory gets put on commentary, and that's the heat. We get dreadful commentary for 2 hours.
And Vince can coach him on how to be a great play-by-play commentator.
Yes. Maybe we could have Vince in his ear, and that channel is open for us. So it's just Austin Theory solo with Vince McMahon yelling in his ear that we can hear at home.
That is perfect. Yes.
Seth Rollins is interviewed by Kevin Patrick, and Kevin Patrick asks him if he's still going to be part of WrestleMania. And there were a chance of Cody here. And he just glared at Kevin Patrick. Omos versus Commander Aziz. The match we've been waiting for.
We've been waiting years for this, since Raw Underground.
If you said to yourself, Commander Aziz, Baba Tunde, and Omos, their first match, long collar and elbow tie-up, you would have been right on the money for how this began.
What do you think they're learning at the PC?
Collar and elbow tie-ups for like a minute. Omos shoulder blocks him to the floor, clotheslines him to the floor, Cruz distracts, Aziz snaps the neck on the top rope, and then Omos just gets him up on a counter for a vertical suplex and a tree slam to pin the guy in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the vertical suplex, looked pretty risky for a time there. I mean, I don't know if he was actually going to get him up there, but I mean, because I think he struggled a bit, it actually kind of made the feat look that much more impressive. And I think his big roar afterwards, Omos's, was really good. I mean, listen, everybody, the wrestling here is nothing. It's not going to be a technical masterpiece. It's nothing special, but their size is special, and I think the feats of strength did come across as special. Yeah, I thought the match was light and entertaining, and I think it achieved what it needed to. It needed to give Omos a big, impressive, feat of strength. That's it.
It achieved that this will not be a singles match at WrestleMania, and that these guys can be in the Battle Royal, and Omos is Omos is the one that is like Commander Aziz was just a stepping stone here. Like it was not as though they're building this guy up. Like he was just the giant for Omos to crush.
Yeah, I mean, Omos really is obviously the bigger project. I mean, Aziz has had a lot of time on the roster, and I don't know how much improvement he's really shown in limited role that we've seen him in. So I don't know what they have really planned for him.
Dude, it's been a year of this gimmick since he was introduced at WrestleMania last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know in the back like how great he's been looking, but certainly the gimmick is going nowhere. With Apollo Crews and Omos, I think it at least has a spark.
And then he chokeslammed Cruz for good measure afterward. Owens finds Rollins, and this is where he notes, tough times don't last, but tough guys do. And says that Rollins just needs to come up with something. You're a visionary. And he lists off past moments for Rollins at Mania, beating Triple H, beating Lesnar, cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase, losing to me. Let's build something. You're the architect. And with that, Rollins smiled and walked off, realizing, yes, I am the architect and the visionary. Two great traits.
He's got a lot of nicknames. Okay.
Yes, yeah, he's a messiah too, so he could perform
a lot
miracle.
Of degrees. Sounds like did he go to school for all these things?
Maybe if he's a miracle worker, he could choose Omos for WrestleMania.
He could
steal the show.
That would be a tough task, but he could.
Queen Zelina with Carmella took on Liv Morgan. The inset promo. Zelina accuses Carmella of being distracted ever since starting your risque reality show.
Yeah, that's what they're branding this show as now.
The risque reality show. Yes.
Like they're so lacking in a hook for this terrible reality TV series. They're trying to somehow push it as like softcore porn on YouTube, like the cleanest social media service of all.
Yeah, I mean, Carmella's kind of downplayed like the post WrestleMania celebration with Corey Graves. I thought they were going in that direction.
Would it be on YouTube or TV?
No, they'd have to find a different platform, probably.
Like Daily Motion, maybe.
Maybe. So, yeah, we had a match here. Morgan rolled Zelina around the ring, and then Carmella distracts, allowing Zelina to powerbomb her out of the corner. Ripley then chases Carmella, who hides behind Corey Graves, and Liv capitalizes with Oblivion and wins in 2:56. So the champions lose yet again, and Zelina's upset with Carmella.
Because she continues to be distracted by Corey being ringside. Yeah, so we have a storyline where a person who is a champion on this roster, this very esteemed roster, can't help but be distracted by her lover that's sitting ringside. And that's preventing her tag team partner from achieving any sort of success. It's terrible promotion for a tag team division. It's terrible promotion for a WrestleMania match. And it's terrible promotion for that reality show, because I can't imagine anybody wanting to watch any of this.
You could get a whole series of this.
Oh, God. Terrible.
They promoted Miz TV for Tuesday night with Dolph Ziggler on NXT. And Seth comes out and he's got a plan for WrestleMania. He wants Kevin Owens to come out so he can hear his idea. He's pitching a talk show for WrestleMania. Everyone should have talk shows. He could call it, I am not making these up, Freakin' Speakin'. Or he could bring back the Rollins Report, and his guest could be Steve Austin. Dude, freaking speaking.
Freaking speaking with Seth freaking Rollins. I mean, that's almost so bad that, I mean, he has to use it.
Oh, my God. Maybe Doc Gallows could come back, and you could have freaking speaking with the Deacon.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
So Owen says, no, that's my guest at WrestleMania. This is not a good plan. And Seth says, what if we had a match tonight? The winner gets to host the talk show at WrestleMania. Owens complains, I had the idea first. Get your own idea. And they argue like children until Sonya Deville comes in and loves Seth's idea and makes the match for WrestleMania. Makes the match for tonight for Raw.
No, this should have been at WrestleMania. Well, if you win the match at WrestleMania, you get the host.
That should have been Seth's idea. How about we have a match at WrestleMania? The winner hosts the Kevin Owens show the next night. And if I lose, I've got to take your name and host the Kevin Owens show, and I got to be your name. I got to take your name for a year.
That's really true. Why did these two just challenge each other to a match if both of them wanted to be
They did
on the
not
show?
think this 2-night thing out at all.
That's
two nights, two options.
You telling me the star power is not big enough between these two? Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, listen. It's a really silly sports entertainment idea to have that just. I thought I was giving him a lot more credit because I thought at the end of all this we'd get the Cody payoff. Instead, it really was just, a match to determine who's going to host a talk show at WrestleMania.
It's more so on Raw than SmackDown, because SmackDown, like, you have the big program that I think is working in a big way. Like you've got Ronda and Charlotte, like you're getting progression. Raw, it feels like we've got our matches, save for Seth, and dude, we're just like putting in like time until we get to WrestleMania. Like okay, tonight's advancement was the Raw tag title match getting established. We got a segment out of that. A lot of it's just spinning our wheels, beating people like Logan Paul feels ineffective at like all these appearances. The best thing for Steve Austin is it looks like he will not appear on TV before Mania, or else, I mean, they'd be crazy not to announce that if he was coming next week or something.
Right. I mean, I can't say that they haven't put effort into some of the builds. Like, I think certainly Bianca Belair versus Becky has been something that's been in the making since August. Like Brock versus Reigns, they put a lot of effort into. But the majority of the matches that are there are just filling time on these shows and filling spots on these shows. And they're just very hastily putting everything together with 1 week builds, Like the Street Profit stuff that we're about to talk about. I mean, I feel like they kind of lucked into it with with Rollins with Orton getting hurt and the Profits getting the win, or whatever that was supposed to be. Anyway, I digress.
Ray and Dominic took on Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. The Miz comes out with Logan Paul, as Corey Graves calls them, a tag team of two Shawns, Logan and Miz, and they join commentary. I will say this for Logan Paul, like he's got like a great like heel demeanor to him. Like
he feels like
got
a
this
natural.
down, like so much so that it's mind-boggling that they cast this guy as a babyface.
No, yeah.
Like,
totally.
like this guy is he just screams heel, and he's him and Miz. I do like the chemistry that the two have cultivated together.
I like it too, and I love the Mysteryos as their opponents because they are smaller than Logan Paul.
Yes, Logan says Ray is very impressive, but he's short.
Yeah, great, awesome.
He's not lying. It's almost babyface as Logan Paul in this guy's mind. So anyway, we got a tornado DDT by Ray onto Alexander. Benjamin made the save. Alexander stopped a 619 attempt, and then a Rana sent Alexander into the ropes, knocking Shelton off the apron. Double 619 to Alexander, and then Ray dives onto Shelton as Dom hits the frog splash, pinning Alexander in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Miz and Paul attack the Mysteryos, and as Miz went for a skull-crushing finale, Ray counters, and they attack both him and Paul. Or sorry, they send Miz out of the ring, and Logan is left in there with the Mysteryos, and Ray gives them this leg kick, and they go for the 619 onto Logan Paul, but Miz rescues him, and the crowd got really heated here. Like, they booed, and this is your spot for Mania, is hitting that 619 on Logan Paul and building the whole match around that. The Mysteryos can lose. As long as they hit that 619, that crowd's going to go nuts. And they set that up really well here.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the program's in good shape. Again, I'm actually quite impressed by Logan Paul's aptitude for all of this. Even in ring, his physicality doesn't look so bad at all. Of course, we know he's a professionally trained boxer. So, at least his striking already looks better than Shane's. So, low bar to clear, I know, but still, I think for a celebrity, he's doing really well.
Is he going to do a Canadian Destroyer?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you kind of have to reserve that. He's probably, he's got to do the Miz's offense, doesn't he?
Maybe he'll try a 619 and he'll fail.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
They announced Queen Sharmell going into the Hall of Fame and will be inducted by Booker T. So there's our answer. There will be an inductor for Sharmell on the show. So, yeah, that Hall of Fame class, it's growing.
It is, yeah, and we continue to wonder how long the show is. I mean, I think like an hour and a half. I think you could even do a 2 hour show, don't you think? 2 hour
That's
broadcast.
Well, remember, there's a 30-minute gap between the SmackDown and the Hall of Fame, so you're
Oh,
looking at like 4.5 hours in that building at 2 hour at 2 hours for the Hall of Fame. Like that's
okay.
I mean, some will sit through that, but I could see like a lot. I see more so the case of like people maybe arriving late because I think the Undertaker thing is the main event to everyone, not
Yeah.
anything on SmackDown, no matter what they announce. And maybe some people.
But we're talking about WrestleMania weekend. We're talking about like fans traveling into town who otherwise may never get to see a SmackDown. So 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Some will, but it's anyway. It's a big building. That's a long night of.
I mean, I feel like we've been to halls of fame that were 4 hours in their own.
I can also see like the for lack of a better term, like the undercard of the Hall of Fame. Like there was the year in Houston, like where like dude, they literally had the timer up there of 5 minutes, and I could see them being very hard on the undercard times, and just to allow room for Taker, and he will go as long as he wants.
Right.
Do you see it being a long speech for the Undertaker? Like I took it as a given that he's going to do a long speech, but
I think so. I mean,
he's never done a long speech in his life.
Well, this is his time to get it all out there. He's got
He might not want to
20
get it
years.
all out there. Maybe he's not comfortable unless it's like on a Zoom call or something promoting his reality show. Or
I have a feeling
documentary.
he'll have a lot to say.
Okay, well, next, Edge came out to his new music. From one Alter Bridge song to another.
Yeah.
Move to The Other Side with the sting off the top. You think you know me? You never did.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, the man seems to have a lifetime contract with Alter Bridge, supplying
Yes.
all of his music from this point on.
He was not going to alter the bridge. He comes out. It's the lights are down. It's like the dark, ominous setting that they had last week. And he explains that he is the benchmark in WWE. He insults the audience, calling them simple. But it's not your fault, so I will grant you mercy. I am better than everyone. All of you and everyone in the industry. The Edge that came back 2 years ago was weak. And you don't matter to me. I took my eye off the prize, and that allowed Randy Orton to tear my triceps, Seth Rollins to cost me the championship, and went into my own home, and that Aquaman cosplayer Roman Reigns, who can't lace my boots, was able to stack me and pin me at WrestleMania last year. And that version of Edge would have gotten beaten by AJ Styles, but that Edge is dead. I won't be judged by any fans or anyone in the locker room, especially not AJ. AJ will be judged, as he smiles and looks up. I think Edge, like, his delivery is very sound. Like, when he is invested, like, he is always invested.
He's always invested. Yeah, what is he not?
Always invested. I would say that my critique of this is just like, dude, this guy was like happy dad / husband like a few weeks ago. He won this feud with Seth Rollins. He won this feud with The Miz. It feels like such a massive shift. And there wasn't like if this happened last year after he was embarrassed at WrestleMania, like you have that reasoning for it. Like he's been doing fine. He was like super husband last month with The Miz, and now he issued a challenge. The challenge was answered, and now he's gone crazy. But he's doing well as the character, so I mean, I can't get too upset about it. But this feels just like a very radical shift, and I do think this story, it needed something that pushed him to this.
You're right. I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the promo. I think he plays. I just like enjoy thought out.
He's a great performer.
I just enjoy like well thought out transformations. And it's not like Edge is coming out like workshopping stuff. I think he's got a lot of this figured out in his head, and he's been able to, I think, translate it really well into screen. But I think you're right. This would have been far more effective had he come across, had it come after, I think, a real failure. and he hasn't necessarily had that. So I mean, this is sort of a transformation that kind of requires you to forget about the recent past and maybe more so just kind of focus on the things that he brought up here. You know, things like having Rollins break into his house and stealing his orange juice and getting stacked by Roman Reigns. So it just seems maybe a bit convenient just kind of due to WrestleMania, and you want Edge being a heel against AJ. There are far worse infractions to me, though, of like, you know, a lack of continuity than this.
No, I think this is going to be, you know, this may be the standout of either night. What these two have, and I think like as well, like, and he kind of alluded to this. Like, I think you can justify a lot of this by just like really building up AJ. Like AJ challenging him is pushing him to realize I have to be at my best. But the trouble is AJ has not been presented like that for the longest time. And now, like, this is when like the chickens come home to roost, and it's like all your work over the last year of positioning AJ in this like middle to bottom role, you can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden it's like, here's this world beater. Even though you can get there, but it's a struggle when it's like you're just trying to flip a switch overnight.
Yeah, that is very true. It's almost as if like AJ has more of a reason to turn heel with the same logic that Edge used tonight because of his enormous failures. You know,
and the way
Omos.
Edge set this up in that promo, like, facing me at WrestleMania is a huge deal. It will make you. I have had all these successes. Like the way he laid out that promo for the Open Challenge. You're right.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, again, this just kind of shows you the lack of pre-planning, you know, for feuds that aren't your Becky Lynch's or Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar's.
Yeah. This is one where, I mean, if you are a fan of the two nights, a match like this is going to benefit greatly because I see this one, this could get 2025. Whereas if it was one night, it would be tough to be able to command that amount of time. Schreiber is with Bianca Belair, who conveys that Becky feels her hair is an unfair advantage at WrestleMania. Belair explains, it's also a disadvantage because Becky had wrapped my hair around the ropes before I took my braid and whipped her. So you live by the braid, you die by the braid.
That sounds like what it is. Yeah.
Veer Mahan is coming to Raw. You can hide in the dark, but it's only a matter of time before you face the oncoming storm.
So, you know, in this whole Omos thing, like, they've really been kind of teasing who's going to step up to Omos.
Oh, please be Veer.
Could it be Veer Mahan?
Oh, that would be tremendous. Yes.
What do you think they're setting Omos up for at Mania?
I think that will depend if the Andre Battle Royal is happening. Like, you have enough of the geeks that can fill a ring. Yeah, you could do like, I'm looking at Veer, like, you could throw him into that Battle Royal, or he's just something for post-Mania. You're waiting to introduce him then.
At this point, I think that makes more sense. You know, he's not going to do unless he's going to win the Andre Battle Royal. Like, why you know, cloud him in sort of like why have him get lost in the build to WrestleMania?
Like, look at Alexa Bliss. They got her back to TV, and what's happened?
Yeah,
lost. Bianca Belair versus Dewdrop, part 304. Nikki says in the inset promo with Dewdrop that real heroes fight fair, they don't use weapons, and Dewdrop threatens to rip Bianca's braid right out of her skull. That would suck. Someone ripped that braid out of your skull.
I think it would also be really difficult. I'm pretty sure it's not attached to her skull.
Well, it could be. She's going to pull the skull with it. I don't know.
Okay. Well, good luck. I don't even think it's... I mean, obviously, it's not her real hair.
This is like a Mortal Kombat finish.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Huh. They had a fine match here. Michinoku driver by Dewdrop. Belair fought back, hit a spine buster, lifted her for the KOD out of the corner. It's a nice match. It's just I feel like I've seen this 100 times, and we're just trying to get Bianca to WrestleMania.
Well, unfortunately, it's a pretty thin division, and you have 4 women in that division being, taken for the tag team title match. So really, all you're left with is, I guess, Nikki, Dewdrop,
who are a pair now,
and that's really it. So you're gonna see this a lot more. You're gonna see Nikki versus Bianca probably
Yep, that'll be next
few
week.
more weeks. And
What
at
do we
least
do
one
for
more.
the? Oh, then we need a contract signing, so that'll get us to the
Contract signing.
final week. Yeah.
I will say, I mean, listen, if it's anybody going to be in the spot, I think having Bianca Belair KOD Dewdrop, like that'll get a reaction every single time. I think it's still quite impressive after seeing it 3 times now.
Bel-Air celebrating when Becky returns and pulls her to the floor by the braid, throws her into the steps, and then puts her neck through the chair and pulls her by the braid into the post. So getting revenge for her voice box by going after Bianca's voice box. You don't see people work over that body part too often. Work over the voice box, yeah. And then Becky gets into Bianca's face and says, "Next week, the hair, bitch." So, are we getting a head shaving next week?
Hair versus hair match. I mean that's bigger stakes than the title. Wow.
I hope they would not try something like that on Raw. Becky needs to think big here for Mania.
Yeah, I don't see them. I mean, naturally, when you think of Bianca Belair and a hair versus hair stipulation, I mean that would be perfect. But I mean, I don't think Becky's not going to put her hair up. Maybe Nikki, at some point would. I like
Sonya was going to do it. Remember?
True, you're right. Okay, yeah, there's a potential feud for the future, but they've decided against that for Sonya, I think. I think
that was when the whole case was going on, and she was going to be in court.
I think the feud is in good shape. I like the fact that they're targeting specific body parts in the build up to the match itself. Of course, first around Bianca Belair's hair, and now it's around the throat, in Becky's throat. And in that one spot, Becky pulling the hair to drive Bianca Belair's throat into the chair against the post. It put it all together really nicely, and I think they're laying some good foundation for the actual match itself with those two things.
It was a good angle. I like this. It was a small use of Becky on the show, but effective, rather than doing some big promo segment or something like that. On to the RK Bro celebration. The two come out. Randy notes this is going to be his 18th appearance at WrestleMania. That's a lot of WrestleManias.
That's a lot, man. Yeah, how many has he actually missed? Because he started when?
He was called up in 2002. He wasn't on the 2003 show.
Okay.
He was there at 2004.
So was he there for every WrestleMania?
He missed the last, as I recall, the last AT&T Stadium one. That was the year a bunch of guys were injured, and he was one of them.
Oh wow, that's quite the record, and that's quite the recall, John Pollock. Good for you.
Well, I always stand to be corrected. But yes, 18 appearances at WrestleMania. But this next month he'll have been on the main roster for 20 years.
That's unbelievable. And I mean, the guy looks pretty damn good.
He's in tights. He's in shorts.
Mm-hmm.
So he's never been a tag champion going into WrestleMania. Quite the distinction. He says this time he's the one throwing the party, and we've got the ring set up with popcorn and soda and chewing gum. And then the last gift he got Riddle is inside a small bag that he says he looked high and low for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A green bag.
So
marbles.
I'm almost done Kim's Convenience, and I'm on the last season. So this aired last year, and they have an episode where the mother is getting medicinal marijuana because she has MS, and the father finds out about marijuana being in the home, and the daughter's explaining it's legal now, and it just seems like this is the weirdest. It feels like this is such a 90s sitcom story at this point. It's 2021, but I guess marijuana is still going to be
especially to I don't want Kim's Convenience, but I mean if those Asian parents are anything like my Asian parents, I mean they're not up with modern laws or whatnot. It's still very taboo to a certain people.
But the mother was the one that was going to use it.
Right. So, but the dad had the issue?
Well, then he accidentally ate a pot cookie.
Oh.
And he got high.
Oh.
Yes.
And hilarity
he just saw
ensued.
a cookie and ended up eating the pot cookie. Yeah.
So what was the end result? Was he like, oh, this stuff is great?
She explained that she needs it for her MS, and he was I guess he was okay okay with it at that point.
Okay, that's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
All right.
Pot's fine.
But what you're trying to say is, yeah, like teasing marijuana.
Yeah,
is very
I just
passe.
personally like I'm just over it. It's like, oh my god, he's referring to pot, but we can't say pot.
No, it's. I mean, of course, in the real world. It's passe, but this is not the real world, John. This is Vince McMahon's world, where taboo is teasing stuff inside a green bag.
It's risque.
Yeah.
This could be on YouTube. The Street Profits interrupt them. They bring up beating them 2 weeks ago and challenge them at WrestleMania. Randy Orton says, you got to do a lot more than just win a match to get a title match. I'm like, okay. Yeah, he explains, we had to win a spelling bee. You got to go through the rigors here to get a title match. So Orton is not going to be told what to do after the Street Profits make their case, but Riddle consults with him and says, we got to face someone. So reluctantly, Orton accepts at the prodding of Riddle, and Ford says, maybe next time we can give you some tips so your party isn't ass. And Riddle gets pissed because Randy spent all day planning this celebration, and I don't want to wait until WrestleMania. So they set up a singles match with Ford and Riddle, and Orton cuts off Dawkins so that they can end the segment with their catchphrase instead of the Street Profits catchphrase.
Yeah. Petty, these people. You know, I can't go off air without my catchphrase.
Because we want no. We're going to end this segment with the 3 most devastating letters. They should have just cut him off and gone to break.
Oh, boy.
AJ's coming back next week.
Let me just say this about this tag team feud, okay? It is the best tag team feud heading into WrestleMania. All right.
This is ahead of the Usos against Boogs and Nakamura.
Yeah.
Ahead of the women's tag match. You're right.
You know, like, and again, I feel like they really left into it because I don't know if the Street Profits were supposed to have beaten RK Bro that time. They did, and somehow they had a reason to build to this rematch.
I imagine this was the direction. I can't imagine the Street Profits were going to be frozen out. Like this probably was going to end up being a 3-way.
But was it supposed to get there by them beating the challengers beforehand?
I mean, it ended up making sense, but that doesn't always mean in WWE that is confirmation that it was the way they were going to go.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, this is great long-term planning. The Street Profits, they're going to challenge it. It makes a lot of sense. I also think they're doing some pretty good, teasing for the eventual turn. Of course, it's so uncharacteristic of Randy Orton to be so happy, to be so grateful, to like somebody else this much that I think everybody has been for a long time expecting the turn. I'm certainly expecting it at WrestleMania. So, they're having to do, I think, the rather difficult task of, again, explaining something like to make you think that it's definitely going to happen without explicitly saying that it'll happen.
Do you remember, last summer, we were thinking, they'll probably blow this off and do this for, SummerSlam.
Yeah.
And my argument at the time is that when you just put 2 people together and then 3 weeks later you do the breakup, no one cares about, because there's no relationship for you to feel bad. Right. And they've gone the total opposite here. So whenever this guy finally turns on Riddle, it's going to really bum these fans out because they've seen these guys have these moments together. For a year, you have seen Riddle just try to win this guy over, and he has. It feels like you've been along for this ride. It's the happiest Randy's ever looked, and you're gonna think of these segments where it seems like Randy's just, these two feel like real friends, that it'll be impactful when they do the turn.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was certainly a doubter about whether they could even keep this going to Survivor Series. Forget WrestleMania, but I mean, it's here. And I think you could make the argument that they if the turn is happening at Mania, they would have peaked it at the perfect time. They managed to keep it captivating enough all the way up until this point, and that crowd will be heartbroken whenever it happens.
So Riddle and Montez Ford, there were suplexes by Riddle at the beginning. After the break, Riddle caught Ford with a power slam a la Orton and then hit the draping DDT and called for the RKO. It's blocked, and he's hit with an enziguri. Then He counters a powerbomb, hits the RKO to Ford when Otis shows up, attacking Randy on the floor. Gable then attacks Dawkins, running him into the post, and Otis takes Riddle, rams him into the barricade as the DQ is called, and then Otis and Gable hit the discus lariat German combo onto Dawkins with an Otis bomb and moonsault delivered to Montez Ford. So Alpha Academy laid out all four, and presumably this sets up our three-way tag for Mania.
Yep, I'm glad to see Gable and Otis, get on WrestleMania, or at least presumably getting on WrestleMania. I think they've done good work.
Then we just went to the announcers on camera, and it was like they just took on like their regular tone and voices and addressed like Scott Hall passing. Corey Graves was just, you could just see he was heartbroken about this and really just struggling just to get the words out. I give him a lot of credit. Like, he had to, go from announcer mode to serious mode and then right back instantly, because they went right to the Kevin Owens entrance after the video package. But they aired the video package on Scott Hall and just went through, the prominent chapters of his career from the WWF in '92 to WCW. 2 times going into the Hall of Fame. It totally escaped me about like the NWO induction last year, and then working as well at the WWE Performance Center.
Yeah, had a short amount of time, but I think it probably did the best that they could have under the circumstances. As always, I think the WWE does a very good job with these videos.
And then Kevin Patrick interviewed Rollins, who said he was lost, but now he's found, and WrestleMania needs Seth Rollins. So that was our final match on the show, Owens and Rollins. Owens took a back body drop on the edge of the apron. Rollins hit multiple suicide dives throughout this match, and several of them, it looked like his feet were getting like caught on the ropes, but not to any serious degree. Owens landed the cannonball for a 2 count. Pop-up gets avoided, and then Rollins hit this beautiful looking springboard knee. Owens broke the count on the floor after being hit by the latest suicide dive, and rolls into the ring, breaking the count right into a super kick, hit by the frog splash as Rollins points to the WrestleMania sign. Owens kicks out. He hits a fisherman buster off the turnbuckle, and then Owens lands on the knees while trying to execute a swanton. The stunner is countered. The ref is delayed with the count, and then Rollins is protesting, misses a stomp, and eats the stunner as Kevin Owens gets the win, and we go off the air with the idea that Seth Rollins will be watching WrestleMania from home.
Yeah. I think a lot of people watching up until the end, waiting for a Cody appearance, probably left this match a bit disappointed. We'll see what happens after this. The match itself was very good, as you would expect from these two. But yeah, I can't help but kind of be a bit unsatisfied without the Cody stuff. But again, that's all. It's the audience really building it up.
For the most part, yeah. What was the line that they used going into the break about Seth Rollins? This could turn into a nightmare. So I get that. I guess that was one like loose line that was thrown out if you were listening closely. But there you go. That was Raw. I enjoyed the main event. It was nothing on the show that I would say was like terrible. It's just like it's a show that I feel like it has like the lesser programs going for it into Mania, and the biggest program they have, it's one half is not on TV and Steve Austin, so you have battling talk show host candidates.
Yeah. Overall, like it doesn't feel like it's focused on the biggest programs besides Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. But yeah, the star power is certainly more on the SmackDown side of things right now.
So we have 2 more episodes of Raw before the show. Next week, I don't even know where they are next week, location-wise, as I look here. They are in Chicago next week, and then Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, and then we arrive at WrestleMania. So 6 more hours of Raw.
Okay, sure. Raw is at least a show that like you can relax when you're watching it, and I can skip so much of it because so much of it is video packages or entrances or just straight up commercial breaks because they're diving to the floor and the next 3 minutes you can pass by. So I've come to appreciate it a little, John, because I can breathe.
It's a way more relaxing watch. I'm not sweating by the end of it.
Yeah, and this is only as a reviewer, okay? Like, it's nothing about watching it as a viewer itself. So anyway,
On to our feedback from forum.postwrestling.com. We start off with Stank. Happy birthday, Way. As someone who never watches WWE, I had it on tonight just to see if Cody actually came out or was teased throughout the show, and somehow he wasn't, and we have another top guy on the card without anything to do at Mania. The segment with Rollins and Owens arguing over hosting a show with Stone Cold was so cringe. Why would anyone want Seth to host it with absolutely no story or angle behind it? Yet the crowd somehow cheered this like it was a better option. Later in the night, I texted a friend that they're giving the main event 30 plus minutes as Owens came out. 15 minutes later, the bell finally rang. No Cody, no sympathy for Seth not going to Mania, and no shot I ever want to share the same room who defends this damn company. They stink. Thanks, guys.
God.
3 out of 10 is the best I could give to this.
jeez, wow, review a Stank coming through with a lot of fire tonight. We got a Chris Thunder from Down Under who says, happy birthday. Thank you very much, Chris. Honestly, I don't really have a lot to say about Raw itself other than the road to WrestleMania feels more missed than hit this year. I was shocked to see the Scott Hall news. I watched him for around 10 years as a kid and still say, hey, yo, all the time. His career is legendary, from his WWF Intercontinental Championship run in the early 90s to then his time in WCW as a founder of the NWO. I also recently watched the New Japan match of Scott Hall versus a young Hiroshi Tanahashi in what is a hidden gem of his career. Thankful to DDP for giving people like Hall and Roberts a second chance at life. Rest in peace to the bad guy.
Yeah, there's like a number of like interesting pairings just from that New Japan run in 2001. Like Tanahashi was just around like 2 years into his career when that match happened with Scott Hall. But like his last match of that run, like he's working Muto for the Triple Crown.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that Muto is still having championship matches. Yeah.
Yes. On to Kate from Montreal. The Scott Hall video package was definitely the highlight of the night for me. Impressive that they managed to put something that good together on such short notice, but it's really sad that they had to. Rest in peace. No Cody, although I'm still thinking that he's Seth's likely opponent for Mania, unless they're planning on surprising us with Veer. Not a great sign, though, when the main talking point of your show is the guy who didn't show up. I really hope this is the last time they run back Bianca and Dewdrop, at least for a while. The two have decent chemistry, but Dewdrop is now 0-5 over 3 months in singles matches. Stop. She's already dead. Happy birthday, Way, and thanks to both of you for all you do. Well, thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. But I have a feeling you're going to see that Dewdrop match at least once more because there's just no other people on the roster right now.
Well, they got Nikki Ash. You did bring up a good point there. They could get around it 1 week.
2 weeks of Nikki Ash.
Well, you know what? Next week with the throat thing, she probably shouldn't be wrestling next week. Like they should do.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Some kind of a segment with those two.
Yeah.
That you don't really require a match, but sometimes on a 3-hour show with this roster, you got to put people in matches for a segment or two.
And they rarely, if ever, do the jobber thing. Just have like Bel-Air come out and just beat a no name. But
Speaking
I mean
of which, what happened to our 24/7 advancement? That was like the most consistent story on Raw. What happened tonight?
That's a very good point. You're right. Yeah, who's in love with whom this week? Who's kissing whom?
Totally missed out.
Maybe they were all watching The Bachelor.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what couples do.
Could be.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your feedback and joining us. It is your birthday's now over, Way.
Yeah, it is. Both of our birthdays are now over. We are 1 year older, on to a brand new year, John. You know,
a combined age of Vince McMahon, you and I.
Ooh, okay. Quick math. What is that? 66?
76.
76. Damn.
Old.
Yeah, well, damn, that sounds really old. What are you looking forward to the most next year?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant when we get off this podcast. I was going to read my book, I think. This year...
Reading a book. That's a great one.
I'm reading a boxing book. This year, I am looking forward to hopefully traveling somewhere outside of, at least out of Toronto, maybe out of Ontario. We will see.
With the whole family? Or just you?
Possibly, yeah.
Wow.
I'm going somewhere in the summer, like within the province with my family. It'll be our first kind of trip.
But you're talking about a place you have to get on a plane for.
I would like to get on a plane this year. I would like to go somewhere. I would certainly like to go to a wrestling show at some point.
Would you combine that with a family trip?
Probably not. I don't think I'd combine a work and family thing.
Okay, so you mean just like a work trip? You would like that, or a
I'll
family
take
trip
either.
solo.
I'll take either. I would like to go somewhere, whether it be work or personal.
That's a great little goal. Well, I'll be doing that. I'm going to LA and San Diego in about a month's time. So,
Yeah. Imagine if I just popped up in like the plane seat behind you.
that would be weird. Yeah. Yeah.
You'd probably punch me. Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Thanks as always to Wai Ting for joining me, and all of you for joining us live.
News updates tomorrow, 1:00. Ask away at 2:00 if you're a double ice cap and espresso patron, and of course that show is available to all of our patrons at Post Wrestling Cafe right afterwards.
That's right. So join us on Tuesday for double the fun if you are double or above. So we'll be live 1 Eastern. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Rest in peace to Scott Hall, and that's going to wrap up Rewind to Raw.
Yeah, we don't have an outro for this one. Goodbye.